Hey everybody, and welcome back to BK's Bullets. Today we're going to be talking about letter 44. Hey everybody, and welcome back to BK's Bullets. As always, I am your host, Brent, and today we're going to be talking about letter 44. This is a comic book series by Oni Press. It came out a couple years ago. I just read it all in the last couple days. I have read this series. I've read it halfway through, pretty much on Comixology Unlimited, because I'm a member of that, and I think the first 2 or 3 volumes are on there. And then Oni Press I think they're still having a sale. It might end by the time this video goes up. But where they were having a sale for Black Friday, like a true Black Friday sale, where they were selling these digital volumes for like $1.99, 99 cents. So I said, screw it. I'm buying all of letter 44 because I've been waiting to see if they were going to do a next volume in Comixology Unlimited. It seems like more and more companies are not doing that anymore. But I said, screw it. I can get this entire thing for under $10. Pulled the trigger, and I've never been more satisfied. This is a fantastic series, and you owe it to yourself to check this out, whether it's through the library, through Comixology Unlimited, or just buying the trades, whatever. It's a couple years old, but highly, highly worth it. I really enjoyed reading this book. This book was written by Charles Soule, and the main artist on here is Alberto Jimenez Alburquerque. Now, he doesn't do every issue, but he does pretty much everything except 6 out of, 35 issues. So that's a pretty incredible piece of work there. In terms of today's artists, half the time you get, on the Marvel and DC books are on and off an arc, 4 or 5 issues, and then on to something else. Whereas some indie creators do stick with their books. Another worthy example is the guy drawn Birthright, Bressari or something like that. I can't forget his name, I'm sorry. He's been drawing it for many, many issues. You have Charlie Adlard, who did practically all of Walking Dead. Any of the Vertigo artists, Pia Guerra doing Why the Last Man. Looking over my bookshelf over here. Who else have we got? Bill Willingham. And who drew it? Mark Buckingham drawing practically all of Fables. Commendable efforts. Eduardo Rizzo doing 100 Bullets. Frank Miller doing Sin City. That's his own thing. But but an artist sticking around with books. Ryan Otley doing Invincible. Sticking around with books that they start, much less come on a little bit later, is getting smaller and smaller these days. So I got to commend Alberto Jimenez Alburquerque and Dan Jackson, who, did a lot of the colors and stuff on this series, for sticking around all the way through. It's a fantastic read because of that. The art being consistent and just being, not having to jump around between different artists all the time makes a nice, easy read, especially when you're invested in the story and you get to know what the characters look like, and you're never kind of recalibrating to how this artist draws this character or whatever, and it just allows you to recognize, oh yeah, that's this guy, that's this guy, that's this guy. In the same way that you've probably done if you've read The Walking Dead with Charlie Adlard. Anyway, so before we get further going here, I want to ask you to like, comment, share, subscribe to this video and this channel, and it helps our YouTube algorithm. We are nearing 200 subscribers. Hey, look at that. But I like doing videos for you guys, and that would help me out a lot, so please do it. So anyway, what is letter 44? Well, if you didn't know, we just had an election here in the United States. And as of, I think, the 1990s, I think it started with George H.W. Bush, President Bush there, and Senior. He wrote a letter to his successor, which was Bill Clinton. And he left him a letter and left it on the Resolute desk on, I guess, Inauguration Day. And that tradition has been continued, and we will see if it continues with our current president, President Trump, to our president-elect, Joe Biden. But this series is based on the idea of what is in those letters, right? Now, this is a sci-fi series. So what could be in those letters? And you always kind of wonder, like I was just watching Stephen Colbert interviewing President Obama, who is on his book tour, and they're jokingly asked about Roswell and aliens, and can't tell you. But if you had something to tell the president on the first day of their term, what would be in that letter? So this kind of goes in those two directions. The outgoing president tells incoming president Blades, I think he's a Hispanic character, but his name reads as Blades. Yeah, but I know it's pronounced differently, so we're gonna call him President Blades. It's kind of dumb, but without an E or anything, I don't really know how to pronounce it. Maybe it's Blades. Blades. Anyway, we're not talking about the president from now on. We're talking about the current president in the book. Anyway. So anyway, our new president in the book is reading this letter, and it says, "Hey, guess what? I know you're new president and all, but you have bigger fish to fry because there are aliens out there, and they're in the asteroid belt outside of Mars, and we've already sent a crew of astronauts in a ship to go investigate this. And this is going to be your number one problem. All the things you said I did that were terrible, they were all in advance, like the purpose of all that. They started in this world, anyway, this alternate history. They started the Afghanistan war and the Iraq war in order to build soldiers, to have a bigger military base, a bigger military presence for the United States to fight the aliens whenever they come. They also poured a lot of money into research to develop new weapons and new transportation systems and all this other stuff, and did all this stuff in secret. The world doesn't know about the aliens yet. The world doesn't even know that they launched rockets and built a space station and a spacecraft up in space in orbit, because they built a giant black sheet and held it in place with satellites around orbit of the Earth while they were building this ship. It's wild. It's wild stuff. And it's this wildness that grabs me, and it'll grab you in the first 6 issues when you read it as well. And I gotta say, it's quite a ride. It's quite a ride. The first 3 volumes, you're gonna rip through them like I did. Really, really loved them. And the other thing I love about this series is that it grabs you and it's so wild, and you're joining the story already in progress. And there's some backstory, flashbacks and stuff to kind of explain how this all got going. But you're focused on the task at hand and why are the aliens here. Then you discover why they're here, and then you're focused on the task at hand of helping them or sabotaging it, whichever way it goes. And at the end of the day, this story is about the persistence of the human race and the beauty in that, and how it's not about individuals, it's about people. And it's, about service of your country, service to your fellow man, and service to the human race to make a better world. Is really the series at the very end. The last issue was a great issue. A great issue. And it kind of, the series over the course of these 35 issues kind of does become a little bit of a tragedy. Because it shows you, or, just reiterates how the human race and all of our foibles and flaws and stuff can just kind of shoot ourselves in the foot a lot of the times, because we don't have, while we have big hearts, sometimes they're not big enough to see through things or think things through, or, sometimes our emotions get in the way, and that kind of helps us, stumble and fall. And we have to learn to pick ourselves up. And that's kind of what the last volume, volume 6 here, titled The End, is about, learning from failure, learning how to pick yourselves up and improve in ways that, you never really thought you might have to. So there's a lot of ups and downs in this book. I really enjoyed it. I definitely think you should give it a try. And the last issue, number 35, is kind of, it's the same way that like Why the Last Man ended with number 60 in that book, where it's like a far flash forward and you find out little bits and pieces. The same way that Walking Dead also ended, with a far flashback. The same thing happens here. But the writing in that one was just, the last 2 issues, they hit me so hard in this this kind of season of uncertainty we're in here with, COVID-19 and all the election turmoil and just what's going to happen next. just hit me real hard. So thank you, Charles Soule. Thank you, Alberto Jimenez, Alburquerque. Thank you, Dan Jackson. Thank you, Oni Press. This was a fantastic read, and reading it over the last few days, just plowing through it, really left an impact on me because of that ending. So I commend you. Anyway, I think you should read this book. I think it's a fantastic sci-fi story. I would be excited if it did get adapted into like a Netflix show or HBO Max. I mean, there's so many different ways now. Who knows? But even if it doesn't, this is still a fantastic story. One that I now own, digitally anyway. If you can call that ownership. But I just love it, and I'm going to recommend it to everyone that I possibly can through this video. So we got to talk about the art. Alberto Jimenez, Alburquerque. I was describing his style to Omar from Near Mint Condition in one of the comments on his videos. He had not finished Letter 44. I think he had the first big hardcover they had. And I described his style of a little bit of like, who was it? Oh, man. Kevin Maguire and Gabriel Ba, right? So it's really quirky. It's one of these new age, maybe, I want to say Latin influence style, but like Jorge Jimenez, who's on Batman and Justice League right now, has some similarities. Also, the guy who was drawing the Ghost Rider with the helmet and Silver Surfer Black, that artist, I can't remember his name, Luther Strode, very energetic, very powerful, very fluid, right? A lot of energy, a lot of kind of just wild. You can tell there's like a lot of passion in these pen strokes or something like that. Maybe a little bit of speed, but everything is, is clear and concise. It's not sloppy, not at all. But it's definitely got a style to it. And it's a little more cartoony, I think, than most people tend to enjoy in comic books nowadays. But I think he's got this Kevin Maguire thing of like facial expressions and, emphasizing really tense moments and sad moments. It's just beautiful at times, and then terrifying as well. He does a little bit of gore and stuff here that really punches you, just kind of gets you really good there. So I got to commend him for that, but does a great job. So the final thing I'll say about this book is I really enjoyed the way that they explored the aliens, right? So typically in a sci-fi book, you'll have the aliens, and usually they're like bipedal or something like that, or they're kind of more human looking. And this kind of goes that same way that Arrival did, if you saw that movie. This was published before that, I believe. But the whole idea of if you listen to Neil deGrasse Tyson on any interview show that he does, he always says, what makes you think that aliens going to look like us when they come down? That they're going to have 2 arms, 2 legs, and a head, right? So this takes that core idea of we don't know what aliens are going to look like. They could look like anything. And the aliens that are in this book are circular and pyramidal, almost, like a cone. And they float, and they call them fractals. So they have their own limbs that go out and recede because they're almost like a fluid type of mercury thing. It's very fascinating, but they're flesh on the inside. And then you meet these other aliens later in the book who are even more wild, and they're just kind of like floating heads, or not a head, more like a brain. Like if you took your brain out and kind of, it was Play-Doh, and you just shaped it into whatever you want. Like you gave it to your 6-year-old and said, build, show me something, and then added some tentacles. That's kind of what the bigger aliens in this book are like. And they don't speak any language that you can understand. In fact, their numbers are in base 6, whereas I think we're in base 10, right? So even their language and their mathematics and all this stuff is totally different from ours. So it's a little bit more of a leap to understand what they're talking about and what they're trying to do for our characters than it is to say, when the Europeans came over and encountered the indigenous people here, right? We're all the same race. We all have the same ways of thinking in our brain. You just had to get around the language barrier, and then you could talk. So a little bit more difficult here, and it doesn't happen without the aliens interceding and kind of like jump starting that in your brain with their help, right? So I really enjoyed that part of the story too, where it was not this kind of like conquest thing or savior thing, and where the aliens were just kind of these weird things out there who were not our friends or not our enemies and didn't even look like us, so we couldn't identify and like assign human emotions to their behaviors and anything. You couldn't do that in the book, and the characters couldn't do that either, and it caused a lot of drama and a lot of tense frustration, which was built upon beautifully. So I really got to hand it to Charles Soule. I know he was impressing me when he was on Swamp Thing after Scott Snyder left. He did a great job there, and this for me like just cements he's a great writer, and I'm kind of bummed that this didn't get more attention. I mean, this last volume here was published in 2018. First volume published in 2014. So yeah, the first issue came out October 2013. So this series has been over for quite a while. Yeah, I'm gonna follow Charles Soule some more because he's a great writer, and I want to see what he does next or what he's been doing, because I've not seen him very often on any of the big two. So I'm curious to what he's doing. But yeah, he was on Daredevil for a while. Looking at Comixology here, did a little bit of Green Lantern, Death of Wolverine. That's right. That's I think the last thing he did that I read. Maybe Darth Vader. Was he writing Darth Vader for a while? Anyway, Letter 44. Go check it out. It's a great sci-fi story. I highly recommend it. Weird, wacky, crazy art, but you're gonna love it. If you can get past, Gabriel Ba, if you can read Jeff Lemire's stuff, if you can read Day Tripper, if you can read Dustin Nguyen, if you can read all these kind of weird ethereal artists, you can read this. You're fine. Don't get stuck about it. It's beautiful. It's colored beautifully. It's consistent. That's the best thing about it. Is that it has so much energy, and it's there every single issue for you to make sure that you don't have any like difficulty. There's a couple fill-in issues here where he tells flashbacks and stuff like that, and there are other artists that step in for Mr. Alburquerque here and there, but they're short, and by that time like the shape of the characters and who they are and stuff like that. So it's not drastic. It's not a new artist coming in on issue 6, and then you having to relearn who everybody looks like. So it's great story. I highly recommend it. Letter 44 from Oni Press. Go check it out. 5 stars out of 5 stars. 2 thumbs way up. Whatever. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you guys next time in the Funny Pages.